The Brighton 40K GT, but there's only 27 players, so that means it didn't end up being a GT. But I thought it was interesting to go over because these are other orc players that did well with good scores. I've seen Graham Russell before, I believe, so I wanted to look at him. And actually, this Robert Atkinson is actually an orc player too. For some reason, he's named Adeptus Sorus, Adeptus Astartes. So I'm going to pull his list real quick. And he says, Nobz, they're hard and they're fast and they're coming for you, orcs. So we have Captain Badrook, Mazraz, Cragbag, Warboss, Mega Armor. And here we see, and I'm just gonna break it to you right now. Both of these gets, from what I understand, we're running a bunch of trucks and a battle wagon on this one, but both of them are running pretty much what was the old archetype, right? If you can see here, this is the first list we went over, or we're going into. He's run just trucks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trucks. Flash Gits, Gretchen, Mega Knob. I love the twin kill saws personally. Nobz, Storm Boys. That's it. He just said trucks, fit as many knobs as I can on here. Can't go for triple knobs because it becomes outrageously expensive. Technically, Flash Gits are knobs too, but they fit perfectly on these 5 trucks. Just imagine each one of those trucks has essentially a missile unit that can get in there and get stuck in. He did not choose to bring the big mech and mega armor. He said, I don't care about the durability. This is all about doing damage, and I tend to agree with him. As much as I do love the idea of baiting someone into shooting my mega knobs with a big mech, I think that's really, terrain and matchup dependent. Sometimes you really just need to make sure you get in there with your hits on the wall. You don't have a lot of them, so you need to make sure you hit. That way, when you're re-rolling your wounds, you're getting very reliable amount of wounds in there, and you're able to fish for a couple more dead wounds if you really need to. So I like the Warboss and Mega Armor just a bit more than the Warboss and Big Mech, but both are equally viable if we're going about viableness, right? So that's Graham. Let's look at his matchups real quick. Oh, sorry, Atkinson, right? Sorry, I closed the wrong one. See, it's the same list. So if Mr. Atkinson, and like I said, this says Adeptus Sorus, but it's not. So you can see right here, when you actually click it, it goes into orcs. So he dropped his 3rd and 5th game just going forward. So let's look at his first game. He went into Uppy Downy, Hypercrypt Legion Necrons. We have Chronomancer, Catan Shard of the Nightbringer, Void Dragon, Hexmark Destroyer, Locust Lord, Immortal, Canoptus Scarab Swarm, Flayed Ones, Locust Destroyers with Gauze Cannon, Locust Destroyer with Gauze Destructor, with Mnemite Exterminator, Glass Destructor, Tomb Blades, boom. I would say the one thing that this list is definitely lacking as a Necron list is, most of the Necrons are lacking this though, are they don't have the ability to pop your trucks at will, right? So having 5 trucks is just annoying threat saturation for them. That Uppy Downy Hypercrypt Legion, what it really wants to do is take these immortals, jump around, shoot your scoring unit, shoot your elite infantry, and then as the Catan get in your face, you don't have enough time or units to get over there and start charging into those immortals, killing them as well. But in this case, something like Flayed Ones are going to be bouncing from knobs because they're going to be wounding you on 6s if you want them to. Even though they're twin linked, it's still not something to be fearful of. You'll kill them. Even small arms fire sometimes works into them in a weird way, or grenades. Tombs Blades are really just for scoring the mission, and the destroyers are so swingy. So as long as you screen your backfield with your 30 grots, try not to get them behind you. They'll end up in some corner trying to get a weird angle. But 5 trucks is really good at just holding the board and not letting reserves come in exactly where they want. Remember that the Hypercrypt, not everything just gets built in Deep Strike. Could you get Deep Strike units that start teleporting around? Absolutely. But as a whole, keep in mind that some of these things have to come in from strategic reserve. So that plays a huge factor if you start placing your trucks on the battle edges and saying, oh, what do you got over there? Oh, no, that's not coming in right now. Never mind. It's coming in further back because stuff's still very slow for Necrons besides the stuff that gets to teleport. Orcs do have a good way to play into them, but that doesn't mean we necessarily is an easy win. If we have play into them, I play into them, good games into them, but it does come down to one-shotting their units sometimes and knowing when to put stuff into Catan and when to just leave him hanging and go kill everything else. So great job by Robert. That shows great generalship just right off the back to be able to take down Hypercrypt because they're the most winning faction this weekend. Then we have right off the bat, you can see his second matchup. This is why I wanted to pull this list up, you guys, because he went into very, very difficult, archetypes, you'd say. He had a Black Templars, High Marshal Hellbricht, Judiciar, Lieutenant, and then Emperor's Champion. Intercessor, Primaris Crusader Squad, Ballistus Dreadnought, Eradicator, Inceptors, Infiltrators, Land Raider Redeemer, Sword Brethren, 1, 2, and then 1 Redemptor Dreadnought with 1 unit of Scouts, a Vindicator Assassin, and a Caladius Assassin. So in this case, we still see the Sword Brethren, we still see the Land Raider. Ballistus Dreads are not too fearful for orcs, even though they could hypothetically pop your truck. I said trunk. And this is a bit less of activations and killing trades. We used to see triple Sword Brethren units, right? That made a huge difference because triple Sword Brethrens are just looking to go pretty much trade hand in hand for Nobz or Mega Nobz, either one. In this case, you can see he's not going to have enough stuff to exactly, run over orcs when they have so many Nobz, Mega Nobz, and able to just punch through power armor. That's really where the value of Mega Nobz, wounding almost everything in the Space Marine army on 2s or 3s, and then re-rolling it with -3 AP. 2 damage is just enough for just about everything. Avoid that Redemptor Dreadnought until you really have to commit into him. Kill everything else that they're using to score the mission. They'll run out of resources. If you have to, on the wall, you can even, I would just say reliably fight on death, guys. This is one of those, I hate to try to simplify this matchup because it's really not simple, but one thing is CP management. If you're going into this matchup and you find yourself losing often, the first question I want to ask you is, how is your CP management? Because if you don't have 3 CP at the start of his turn, I'm already looking at you sideways, because you should be hoping to fight on death at least 1 or Artist Nail somewhere, right? So if you at least don't have 2, we'll say, you did not plan logistically ahead of him to do damage to you or to start this fight, right? You're throwing too much resources into you're too much CP into other resources, not going to give you a return into a fight for his Black Templars, those kind of melee armies. Fighting in death swings that matchup so far on its head that Space Marine players hate it. Now, this is his 3rd matchup, and this is the one he did lose. And he went into a Hyperkept Legion King Time. So we have the Catan Night Shard, the Hexmark Destroyer, the Locust Lord, Plasmancer. I believe this guy was Philippine. And then the Silent King. Then we have Necron Warriors, which is a surprising twist, Death Marks, Locust Destroyers, and then he brought a Monolith. So this guy brought pretty much a very odd archetype, very weird skew, considering that the Monolith can go up, come down, auto punch you with pretty much Dreadnought level punches. The Silent King himself can start popping transports because of his Menhirs, and then he can move around the battlefield as well. And I believe those warriors can get teleported to the Monolith as well. And then that's after it already does its thing too. So bunch of shenanigan movements on this. You still have the Nightbringer on there. You still have weird little the Hexmark Destroyer and the Locust Lord. These different characters that are going into your destroyers. Mind you, destroyers are oddly durable. You're not, at shooting at them, you're not going to one-shot them. So this is like a weird unit that you end up not paying attention to unless the enemy messes up and puts him in a range where you can get to combat with him. So just letting these guys sit back and pick different angles of fire and shoot would be pretty tedious and, kind of annoying, to say the least, right? So how did this list go? I haven't played into this exact list yet. No one's running the Monolith and the Silent King where I'm at, so I haven't got to see it yet. But we all have seen Tactical Tortoise videos talking about this for the most part. It's a odd one. So he lost that 66. I'm not surprised because your trucks have no capability to stage in that kind of matchup. You just Monolith, Silent King, start popping all your trucks, right? So happens. Now we go into his 4th, which is just to clear the point. Robert had hard matchups. And how do we know that? Because one of his matchups was the other orc player. So we had that fellow Green Tide, right? So this is the other orc player that ended up going 3-2 here with Russell Graham. You can see he went 100, 100, 100, and this was his 4th loss into Robert, okay? Just you guys, just so you're following. So he has Beast Boss, Gazgul, Nob with Wall Banner, War Boss Holomulet, War Boss, and Mega Armor. 2 units of Beast Snaggle Boys, 1 big brick of 20 boys, 4 trucks, a battle wagon, 30 Gretchen, 1 big brick of Mega Nobz, 2 2-man units of Mega Nobz, and then Storm Boys. So he's just looking to put these Nobz in the units. That the one thing there's one off. One of the Nobz, the big thing that is weird about this army that it doesn't have Nobz, the Nobz with Power Claws, because I really, really feel like that Nob Scalpel unit is almost mandatory in a bunch of different matchups. So Surprise is not on here. He just chose for more stuff. And I've actually moved away from running big bricks of boys because I feel like too many different armies have a good amount of activation to pop your wagon and then pick the whole unit up. But I very, very much love the Nob with Wall Banner, compounding with Gaz and Makari lethal capability. It's a beautiful thing. But Robert did win that matchup. And then his final game which he did end up losing, was into Space Wolves. Now, this is Stormlands. Stormlands is very much a possibly, we'll say a high to mid-level difficulty kind of army, kind of high, not high, middle, high, low. But what this is one of the best versions of the Stormlands task force that I've ever seen, because he found the perfect balance of a bit of shooting with not too much cavalry saturation, and then he tucked in one of my favorite units since 8th edition, Wolfen. Wolfen are outrageous for their points value. Ripped to actual boys, right? Wolfen get their hammers, they get storm shields, they get advance and charge all game. They're 80 points and just a 5-man unit with pretty much the same amount of wounds. They get 0 OC. So this is pretty much when you as a smart orc player starts to move block all of these Thunderwolf cavalry, the Wolfen are there to continue to pressure you, run up the middle, run up terrains, run through terrains, or they can run up the sides of the table, right? Because the Thunderwolves are already interacting there. The scouts might already be interacting in the middle. And then you have the Salt Jumping or Pack Intercessors, followed by only 1 Lancer, 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, and then 1 Ballistus Dreadnought, and then Henchman. I think 2 Lancers would probably be better, but he probably just had the points for that. And Dreadnoughts, I think they help just because they do give you that firepower with the Macroplasma and AP and Chain Gun. And then if you're smart going into Orks, which I don't know if he did this or not, but putting your Dreadnoughts in front of your cavalry to go first does kind of make a difference sometimes. I don't necessarily mean like stage them so you can't move. I mean, when you know the wall is coming, put those Redemptor Dreadnoughts in a place where they're more likely to get touched, because Orks have a hard time chewing through Redemptor Dreadnoughts. So, and then right there, you can see it was a good score, but he did end up dropping that game to Alexander England. Now, we'll look at Mr. Graham's list again real quick. He went 3-2, but he did what we call pretty much multiple trucks, battle wagon with one big brick of boys, and I love to see it. I'm a big fan of that kind of list. I've ran things like that, but I still think you need flash kits and or Nobz on that list when you're going to run it, because you're just pretty much all playing the mission, and it feels like a weird skew. So he ended up, oops, I just pretty much clicked on him again. Right here, we went to the World Eaters first game. We all know what the World Eaters do. Instead, this one has Karn. I think Karn's pretty great for what he is, but hey, it is what it is. You can see we're on Defiler here in a Land Raider. So this guy was trying to think out the box. In his last match, this is his second match, and he did end up losing this one to the Sisters of Battle. So in my opinion, he just had too many soft targets for the Sisters of Battle on this. And the Sisters of Battle have a ton of activation. So the fact that he chose to be kind of like a bunch of soft targets and then go into this kind of matchup, I mean, just look at all these different activations between the Seraphim squad. They're playing the mission. They're doing everything. They're jumping around the field. They're being very annoying. He was limited to 50 points there. So I always say, though, sure, that faction might not be the most difficult matchup, faction per faction, ability per ability. But if anybody's maining a faction, as in that's their primary faction, and they maximize that, they're always going to be dangerous. So do your homework on Sisters, because they do have tools to deal with orcs in some weird ways between the Arcoflagellants, Castigators, Reliable Meltas, stuff like that, and the Warsuits. Still think we have great, play into them for the most part. They're still power armor. They're still quite soft, but flash kits seem to play the factor there, in my opinion. Then in the third matchup, we have him going into the Adeptus Sororitas again. And of course, I should say, the generalship obviously matters greatly for when you're going into any T3 army, period. So we have Martyr Lady, Junith, Morgan Val, Palatine, Sister, 2 Arcoflagellants, 2 units of Sacrosaints. I'm not sure if they really have a place. I haven't seen them competitively anywhere around me. The competitive players are not using Sacrosaints. They are using Crusaders. Because, dude, Crusaders, 25 points, y'all. These are just coming from reserve. It's just 2 homies for 25 points. And you just go, I'm going to score over here. So that's pretty cool. Repentia, Retributor Squad, Seraphim, bunch of Seraphim, and then the 1 unit of Paragon Warsuits. Very reliable damage. I really like Paragon Warsuits. I think they're pretty awesome. But, as a whole, orcs should have a good, good activations, good potential to kill those T3 armies. And really, mission does play a huge factor. Because like I said, Sisters are looking to go time in the middle of the table because they don't have long range for the most part. Like for their most damage is not long range. So do they stage and go into you as an orc player, or are you staging and going into them, right? Who's controlling the pace of momentum? Is the mission allowing that? All those things are factors that we can account for. But one thing I do know is Sisters want to meet you in the middle. And if they can get off first on you when you're trying to stage, they do have enough volume and enough units to take angles on you and start picking away at all your killing stuff. So Good job there, Russell. Now into his fourth matchup. He did go into the other orc player and lost. We've seen that. And then his final match, he went into Sisters of Battle. So we have Archon on the same thing. Cabalite Warriors. I don't want to say too much, and you do have Rack because I haven't got enough of my own games, so I'm going to get games probably this weekend of the Sisters of Battle. I just know that Towels are freaking super annoying. They're actually pretty good at killing vehicles as they get like anti-vehicle or twinling, something like that. And then Scourges with their Dark Lances are something to take serious. Don't sleep on Eldar. Do your homework on what they do. The only way you're really going to lose into this matchup, other than like the mission completely throws you on its head, is if you don't know what's happening. That's the only like assured way you're going to lose to Dark Eldar, because I promise you they've seen what you can do, but we have all the tools to deal with them. As you can see, Russell put 100 points on them because, like I said, they don't have volume of shooting necessarily, and they're very soft, and we fight on death, and even one of our diminished units can throw them off an objective. So you can have all the movement shenanigans in the world, but if you can't play the primary, you get run over, boys.